Morning, NAB members. Thank you for joining us. We're really delighted to have you with us here today. Can we kindly just give it another minute or two? We just need more of our members to join, and then we will kick it off. Thank you. Good morning, NAB members. Welcome to today's webinar, and thank you once again for joining us. Today's session follows our successful World Radio Day webinar, where we were joined by the MDDA. And we were just looking at radio and AI, the AI's impact on radio. So this is a follow-up to that, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this session. Now, this one is a more practical session where we'll be looking at real use cases for AI and radio. We'll be exploring the real tools that we can use as radio broadcasters and their implications for South African radio. So we have two wonderful experts in this field. We have Dr. Vuyo Nyembezi, who's the Acting Group Executive for Technology at the SABC. And we also have Mimi Kesaris from Gagasi FM. He is the HOD of Consumer Insights, Technology and Innovation. So we would greatly appreciate your active participation in today's webinar. Feel free to leave comments and questions in the chat box, but we will also have a nice Q&A sessions after our two experts have presented. So I would now like to welcome our Executive Director, Nadia Bobulia, to kick us off with welcoming remarks. Nadia, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Fense. Thanks for organizing this again. A huge warm welcome and huge gratitude to Dr. Vuyo from the SABC and Mimi from Gagasi. As a membership organization, the one thing we're trying to do is to really develop a space and a platform for skills sharing. One of our key pillars as the NAB is around professional development. And thank you so much to all of you who did participate in the World Radio Day session. And as UNESCO's theme this year was AI and radio, I think it's important to note that along with that theme, they did say expressly that AI is a tool and not a voice. And I think today it will be lovely to hear how we can use these tools to make our work better, and really just to deal with the issues of innovation, which is just natural progression, certainly in the sector that all of you work in. So one of the things that I was really interested in when we had the discussion, in the bigger forum around World Radio Day, was really around whether AI, artificial intelligence, enables or inhibits. And I think today we're going to hear about how it really does enable, I think, and make our lives easier, but it certainly is not there to replace, certainly not to replace humanity or any of us. And what UNESCO talked about is they said that, AI should be regarded as innovation that empowers, as ethics, and this is what we need to be concerned with on the broader scale, ethics that inspire, and trust that endures. They also pushed very hard around the issue of investing in people and investing in their skills. And so again, today is just part of the NAB's mission as well around that investment in skills. And for all of you who have been loyal, supportive members of the NAB, we encourage you to reach out to Fense with any suggestions or ideas on issues that we should be discussing, debating, and taking forward, because we're very concerned with future-proofing this dynamic and incredible sector of course, in a space that we know is becoming so complex, so competitive. And at the core of it, as radio practitioners and as radio still being the most universally accessible and affordable medium, is something that we need to continue to support and continue to find opportunities to grow the sector and really to look at new audiences. And I know that Dr. Vuyo is going to talk a little bit about younger audiences, because these are the tools, the technological tools that we can use to make sure that we do reach all audiences across the spectrum. So a huge welcome. As Offense said, we would really appreciate your engagement, your support. And out of the session, we're aiming to actually write up a kind of resource page specifically for our radio members. So warm welcome, thank you. And I think Dr. Vuyo is ready with his fantastic slide presentation lined up, which is great. And a huge gratitude because, Doc, I know you're busy traveling, you're heading off from here to the airport. So, to carve out time for the NAB is really so special. So thank you very much. And again, welcome as well, Mimi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for welcoming us. Dr. Vuyo, it's now over to you.
Thank you very much, Ufense. I must first appreciate you for the call and the discussion, and also to Nadia and the whole team, basically, for the support that you give us as the industry, because it is through you that we have a voice, especially in matters that relate to how we can move the radio forward. Because when you fight this battle alone, you will not go anywhere. So I think the unity that is here, the collaboration, is what we need. And I must say, when we were discussing with Offense, I was very excited. I know he calls me an expert, but I'm not an expert. But the fact that we, as the sector, in particular radio, we are sitting down and discussing this, because for the past 2 years, Nadia, I think, will come at the end and talk to this. There were engagements around our own government driving the AI. My view has always been, why can't we drive it ourselves? Because government, they just take the input from us. We are the ones that understand our audiences, and we are the ones that are doing this. We are on the ground. With that said, let me get to my presentation. And also thanks and greetings to my colleagues on the platform. The focus really for me was exactly what Nadia was talking to say. As a community, we should share, and we should also talk about awareness and what opportunities are there, and how we can keep or maintain our audiences if we cannot add on the audiences that we have. So my presentation is taking that angle, and because I'm a proponent of inclusiveness and accessibility, which is also part of our mandate as the SABC. Before I get to the crux of the matter, I just want to share with the colleagues to say, when we started with the AI journey in the SABC, we just took a strategic decision, meaning it is an intent to say, let's have an AI strategy. Then within that AI strategy, we'll be able to define also the tools that we think will bring value from an ROI perspective, the tools that will also safeguard ourselves. Because remember, even if you do not participate or you sit and do nothing within the space, the crawlers, all these guys, the hackers, are using AI. They will be breaking your passwords and so forth and so forth. So you have to also look at it from the defense perspective. So our strategy was based on that. And Nadia also spoke about our own people. Within our own people now, we then said, what is it that we want them to do? By defining a strategy, then you start to move towards the parameters that anything and everything that we do, we need to do it within these parameters. So when they are clear, whether you call them guidelines, whether you call them principles, whether you call them a policy. So we are not there yet. We are still in that journey. But during the engagement, I can share what we have done in details. So I think we've seen it, the colleagues that are here, that already as we are here, there is a reality check. There is a shift. And if you do not move, unfortunately, the train will leave you behind. But the shift that we are seeing is that AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It is actually something that is amongst us on a daily basis, whether you like it or not, because many of the equipment that we buy, some of them are embedded. So within that perspective, we are saying, yes, it's going to be a tool, but let it not replace our own people. Let it work side by side with our human talent and allow the humans to still have that empathy, but then build on that, augment, take some of the task that the team is doing. But while we're doing that, at the same time, we should not leave any listener behind. So we should move forward with an intent. And if we do not, we know that already we're going to be left by the train. But at the same time, it will, if we move forward, it will assist us with the cost reduction, especially in many of the things that we do within our broadcasting space, from how we do content discovery to how we do content distribution. Even in between how we then edit that content, these AI tools play a very important role. They save time, speed, and also they save us cost. The transformation is there. All the manual work that we're doing, taking, for example, the SABC, the manual editing that we've been doing, then the AI is bringing that efficiency shift to say certain things can be automated, whether it's a script, depending on the appetite. But if you want to automate those functions, you can do that. But also from a distribution element, as I spoke about the 3 chains, the discovery of the content, the part that we do in between, and the distribution, we will start to see that we can distribute much more wider to different communities to and get to access to even youngsters through the second screen. And the future, of course, is saying, although we'll do all this automated script writing, we can still benefit even more through the personalization. That those are the things that will now start to enhance how we view our content distribution, even from a radio perspective, because from just a single source, you can have the same content, we've put the same effort, but it distributed widely into different platforms with ease, or with just a click of a button. So that efficiency shift is something that I think we should be looking forward to. It should be an opportunity to all of us as the broadcasters here. just to take one example, especially from a news perspective, there are many tools that are there. But from a news gathering perspective, you find that the same example applies. You do the automated scripting. Your facts checking is done by the same tools. And you then start to split that content into multi-language translation on a fly. I'll share an example as I continue with the slide, what we have done in our archive area. But this process on its own will take a minute now. I know I'm exaggerating by saying a minute, but in essence, it will just take a very short time to do many of this work. So your workflow is changing completely. Some of the areas, of course, we're using voice to then drive these tools, which on its own, it means your hands can be doing something else. So we start to increase our productivity, and the tools bring those efficiencies. And it's not only the front-facing teams that are benefiting or that will benefit, and it's not only the audiences, but the quality of what we do as the engineering, from your audio leveling, your audio balancing, all these things then start to be done automatically when you start to set those parameters, and your AI tools start to identify the parameters and control them for you, even to our compilers, where they can then start to do their music scheduling with ease, being assisted by these tools based on the strategy, because many of our radio stations, maybe let me make an example with the SABC. They have a certain genre of music that they will play based on their strategy. But then these tools allow us to be able to now have clear reports to say, are we aligned to that? What type of music are we playing, and so forth. Just one example, I was checking how I play my music in the car with one of these tools, and the tool can even predict your age. Actually, I was about 25 years old. I think it's some of the local music that I was playing. So it brought my age way down. So these tools, they've got those elements. And the compiler now can do that. But there is a future outlook, which I think Nadia was saying, at some point we need to get there, whereby even these DJs will be able to be AI DJs in some of your shows. But there is a way to do it, ethical way to do it, where you declare, but that's the level where we want to get to. Currently, we do some pre-packaging of content for the what you call the graveyard sometimes. But if you have these AIs and you start to train them, they can get to a level whereby they can drive these shows. And I think that's the future that we want. Already in some areas, those things are happening. Similarly, with how then we deliver this content from a tech now perspective with our own playout automations, because that's where effectively you automate, but that's where you then start to mine all this data. Then that's just one element, but there are elements that are saying, radio is still going to be there for many, many years to come. But it might change slightly, it coming closer to the streaming by itself or to the streamers, because we will start to have this engagement. I've spoken to the second screen. We previously, which is what we still do now, even in the SABC, people still call and they say whatever they say. But with all the gamification tools, people can start to now participate via a second screen while they are following the shows, but they are already voting, they are already making up their mind. Yes, we've done it with the WhatsApps and so forth, but we can increase that. But also, it in multi-platforms, which is what we're doing already. But with the AI, we can do it even better. Because for me, that's what resonates with the youngsters. They don't have much time to listen to anything. They want short clips. They want that. They want it where they are. So unfortunately, you have to follow them. You can't say they must come to me and they must tune to my radio station. You start to personalize it because you know what they want. If they've followed you before, then you start to personalize it. You start to then invite them. You start to make those recommendations. Those are some of the things. But there is one more thing that even at the SABC, I can confess, we're not doing it very well. That's the monetization. And I think some of the colleagues here might attest. Those who are doing it very well will have to share the secrets with us. But that's the element. The end goal is we still need to be sustainable, colleagues. So we need to also find ways to say, then based on the audiences that we know that we have and the content that we generate, and it's not coming cheap. The dramas that we produce within our shows and the people that are actually our content drivers, we need to then side by side start now to say, how can we leverage on that? How can we increase the monetization? And the beauty with what we just spoken about is that with the same clip, you can start to take it into different platforms, and you can then start to monetize it within those different platforms. So that's one element that I also wanted to touch on. Then this area is really a passion of mine, and is embedded, fortunate enough, in public mandate for inclusivity, that we need to serve all the communities. Yes, some of our radio stations via the transmitters are just limited to that particular area. But as radio is evolving, now it's giving us opportunities to be able to engage different communities in our space of the traditional transmitter and outside of that. So then that becomes a key. Then the tools then come in handy, where then you know that certain people, they like your radio station or they like to listen to the radio station, but they might need some of the difficult words being translated for them, or where they can be able to then look it up so that they form part of your radio community. And the multi-language pack will allow us to be able to do that. And I'll talk to this when I get to the archive element. Then the inclusivity also for me go hand in hand with the accessibility. Hence, I'm saying we should not leave any listener behind, because with the advent of AI, it means people with hearing impairment, they can also benefit. Visual impairment, they can benefit. And those who want to then the speech being paced for them to understand clearer, they will also benefit on this. We are already having a partnership with the Sadila, and we're doing the speech to text or audio to text as part of our activity. So By doing these, or rather using these tools, we can start to benefit different communities then that resonate with the inclusivity as well as accessibility. This is the case that I was talking about, where we're digitizing some of this content, but it also allows us to preserve. We do preserve via the digital audio format, but now we back it up with a script. So the outcome of that inform how we move forward, which is the last point that talks to us being able to have a data sets, and those data sets can then retrain some of these models on the nuances of our language, the pronunciations, and so forth. And as the SABC, we want to contribute to this element, especially to the communities. That's what we're working on. We are using different partners, trying to have those data sets. At some point, our vision and view is that any person out there that might want to train their AIs, whether in different languages and so forth, we would like to be that hub where they come to SABC and say, this is the course that I'm doing. If it's a researcher, of course, they will not pay. But if you're gonna train this AI tool for commercial element, there will be a fee to it. So we're still working on the tiering. Then again, simultaneously with that, we are working on the data classification, the data labeling. Then based on that, we know that whichever that is classified or cannot be shared and so forth, we cannot share. The one that we can share, we can then share. Because ultimately is that these models, when they are trained with the way we speak, the language that we listen to on the radio, they then it reduces the biasness, because I know somebody that has actually done AI LLM AI model training using the Bible, but now they then learn that, then they start to interpret certain things differently. Then you start to ask for Bethlehem, they point you towards the east side of the up there towards the Israel side. So we need to then use our own tools and resources that we have. Hence, we as the SABC are trying to position it in that fashion, that it must be accessible. Anyone can come. I mean, anyone. It can be telcos, it can be you as a broadcaster, because we know that at some point, one or the other, you are part of helping us to have this data. Now, of course, there will be an effort from our side to package it, to prepare it. But then if you're going to use it for a public value, then definitely we will support. Some of the tools that we had defined in our strategies, and by default we are starting to implement, because the strategy was assisting us to then identify the areas. By identifying the areas that we want to drive, we can narrow it down for investment purposes. Then we can then have a list and prioritize and say which area, whether it's from a revenue, a generation, and so forth. But what I wanted to share was that from the revenue perspective, your ads management systems then will allow you to be able to then serve different platforms with the same ad, and they get double or multiple the reward. We also worked with one partner that has been assisting us, where previously, you'll know, as a radio station, you will have to listen or record on the NetLogger or whatever tool that you had to ensure that when the advertiser comes back, they say, hey, was my advert played and so forth, at what time, you have to produce that. Then there are AI tools now that they can actually do the verification and so forth. And one of the partner media hosts is got a multiple of these tools. I'm not promoting them, but I think they are one of the company that you can look towards. Then, of course, I spoke about the cross-language, making the content accessible in different languages, and then it from the executives that are here, the decision makers, you then start to get the insights out of that. Then, of course, when you start to now talk to different elements that you can do with these AI tools, we had this, and I think you've had it yourself, that in some of the stations, certain programs, you have AI DJs or announcers already driving the shows, and of course how we package our content, and also within the technical space. I've spoken to that in detail, but the whole broadcast chain will have their own different tools. So for me, if we can start to segment it like that, and on whatever repository in NAB, we start to share which tool belongs to which segmentation, whether it's a content discovery, whether it's content packaging, whether it's on the content distribution, then with that repository, it's easy to build our own resources from there. Then there is an ethical element. All that we're doing is good. We are on the attack, but there are risks, and we still need to implement this solution responsibly. There must be a human that is making the decisions, and accountability still belong to the human, hence the human on the loop. And I think even UNESCO speaks to that. And of course, the transparency and the privacy. So we still need to observe those. So for us, these were the parameters that we had to define, all the way to sovereignty, all the way to data governance. So you start now to create your own parameters, what you can do, what you won't do. Then that also influence the team, the culture within the team. I've spoken to this, and Nadia also spoke to it, that AI should be the tools that are supporting us to do what we do. We cannot replace the human focus, but we can augment and take some of the load from our presenters or our own people, but the storytelling still belongs to them. The connection with the communities still belongs to them. You might be able to train an AI, then people will resonate with it. They will stay with it at night, and it become your night DJ. There is that chance, but it doesn't, and it won't have empathy. Maybe in the near future there will be that level of intelligence within the AI DJ. Then what does all this mean? Firstly, within in line with what the UNESCO is saying, and Nadia made a reference to it, the AI will remain the tool, not the voice, but we should adopt it. We should ensure that it brings efficiencies in our space. It changes the way we do things. It brings speed, efficiency, but at the other areas, we must ensure that we benefit, we're able to monetize, because the investment must give us the reward that we want. And that's my presentation, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vuyo. We really appreciate it. And I feel that there's great potential for AI to promote inclusivity and accessibility, as well as showcase our country's diversity. So thank you for taking us through what the public broadcaster is doing in that regard. At this point, I just want to remind everybody that if you have questions and comments for either of our two speakers, please think about them. We're going to have a combined Q&A session at the end. And I see a comment from Dave saying there are 3 radio stations he knows of that are 100% AI generated, 2 of them in the US, 1 in Germany, and they run 24/7. The German one is broadcast terrestrially, and it runs a top 40 format. So if anybody has anything to say about that, you can just reply to Dave in the chat. And now we'll be moving on to the audience intelligence and commercial strategy side of things. Understanding listeners has always been a key part of radio, but now AI allows us to move from assumptions to predictive insights. And to speak more about that is Mimi Kesaris. He is the HOD of Consumer Insights, Technology and Innovation at Gagasi FM. So welcome, Mimi. Over to you.
Thanks, Offense, and thanks to Nadia and the NAB for having me again. I'm coming to you from the hot and humid province of KwaZulu-Natal. It's been pretty hot and humid for the past few weeks. So if you have a weekend off and you with us from one of the colder provinces, please spend some time, come down to KZN and make sure you tune into Gagasi FM. So I'm pretty much going to be looking at AI in generating insights across the different departments in the business. And for those of you that don't know, Gagasi FM launched in 2006, coming off the back of the previous P4 radio. Since our launch, research has been the bedrock of our success. We've always lived by the adage of find out what the people want and make sure that we give it to them. What has changed, however, is how fast and how intelligently we can now find out. Since incorporating AI into our workflows in, I think, around late 2023, our ability to move from data to actionable insights has accelerated dramatically. And Vuyo mentioned efficiency and speed, and that features prominently in what I'm going to be discussing or taking you through over the next 5 odd minutes or so. In simple terms, we now spend less time analyzing and more time acting. Let me run through how we use AI from an audience insights perspective. From a research point of view, AI helps us to stay on top of trending topics and competitor analytics, both from a macro South African perspective and also from a micro KZN lens. Reports that previously used to take us days are now generated in minutes, as has already been highlighted. That speed matters because audience behavior doesn't wait for fancy decks. Survey analytics and reporting have also transformed. AI now generates structured reports directly from survey data sets. What used to require outsourcing and weeks of turnaround time is now done in-house, often within hours. In the past, we used to outsource our data processing, our analytics. We used to get those results back in weeks. We're now able to generate a large part of that ourselves in-house, and usually within days. That means that decisions are made while the opportunity still exists. Open-ended responses, for example, used to be one of the most time-consuming exercises in research. Analyzing, for example, 500 qualitative responses was painstakingly slow. Today, AI performs thematic analysis in absolute minutes, identifying patterns, sentiment, and recurring themes instantly. It doesn't replace interpretation, it accelerates it. Even focus group recordings and video survey responses can now be analyzed pretty much in real time. AI extracts sentiment indicators from body movements, for example, and facial expressions, key themes and engagement signals to complement the verbal responses. We apply human judgment, cannot overemphasize that, but now we start structured intelligence instead of raw transcripts. When we hit creative blocks in questionnaire design, which often happens, especially when you're dealing with legacy questionnaires over time, AI assists by generating questions, or question options rather, based on the uploaded questionnaire, and even suggests follow-up questions based on previous survey results. It's like having a research assistant 24/7, doesn't ever sleep. Music, which is mission critical for us as a music-driven station, getting the mix right is everything. AI now helps us analyze music sentiment by day part, mood, tempo, and genre, something that Vuyo alluded to earlier. We can see how listeners' responses shift during commute, workday, and even listening, as well as that of weekends. What was previously mechanical, based purely on preset playout rules on playout systems, in our instance we use Zeta, is now far more fluid and insight-led. That directly supports maximizing time spent listening and share of attention, which in this day and age, with share of attention being fragmented like never before, is critical. As in a competitive audio landscape, we know that attention is currency. Moving on to social media, AI tracks how digital campaigns now in real time, whether they are station-led or client-led campaigns. We monitor again engagement, which is critical, reach and sentiment as it happens, not retrospectively. This allows us to tweak campaigns mid-flight to ensure that KPIs are achieved. For example, if a regional retailer's digital promotion is not resonating as strongly as expected, we can adjust messaging and amplification in real time so that there's no surprises at the end of any given campaign. Another example, if a retailer campaign is driving online engagement during specific day parts, we optimize around that behavior, and that actually shifts the conversation from we ran your campaign to here's what worked, where and why. That's powerful for advertisers. Tracking owned media performance also gives us clarity on what content is resonating and also on what isn't. And we can use that information and insights to ensure that more often than not, the content that we are delivering to our audience is resonating. AI-generated summaries provide strategic recommendations also based on the performance data. The same applies to competitor analytics, including share of voice reporting across our social media platforms. And importantly, AI-driven negative sentiment alerts helps us detect potentially reputational risks early, allowing us to nip these in the bud as quickly as possible. Also allows us to respond before issues escalate to an extent where reputational damage could have been avoided. Because of radio, trust travels fast, we know that, and so does criticism. Design work, this area has been completely transformed. Banners, billboards, newsletters, infographics, and internal visuals can now be generated within minutes, which means ideas move faster from concept to execution. At Gagasi FM, we've even developed realistic listener avatars based on our first-party data, which we use internally to guide tone, messaging, and commercial positioning, and in certain instances for client immersions as well. AI-assisted presentation decks are also generated rapidly based on prompts and uploaded content. While refinement is always required when it comes to decks, our time savings are significant, and time saved on formatting is time invested better elsewhere. And lastly, programming. AI has introduced a new level of accountability. Talent adherence to format clocks and style guides can now be monitored more accurately. If links run too long, if they go off topic, or repeat identified verbal crutches, alerts are triggered for review by the respective manager. It's not about policing creativity. It's always about protecting consistency and also delivering the best listener experience. So in closing, AI does not replace instinct, it enhances it, and that is key. For us, AI is not about automation for its own sake. It's about accelerating insight, improving decision-making, and ultimately serving our audience better and faster than ever before. And I'll leave you with this. The stations that win in the AI era won't be the ones with the most data, but the ones who use it to deepen human connection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mimi. And I love how you closed it with the element of human connection, because that's what radio is all about. So now we'll open it up for questions and comments to either one of our two presenters. And I think I'll go first. My question is, how do we then strike a balance between adopting AI effectively, but also keeping the human at the center of it? And I see Judy's got her hand up. We'll go to her right afterwards. How do we strike a balance between keeping the human at the core, but also adopting AI effectively? Mimi or Dr. Vuyo, this can be taken by either one of you.
Yeah, so
Mimi, you can go first. I'll follow.
Thank you, Dr. Vuyo. So adopting AI, I mean, as has been mentioned prominently in the previous webinar and in the current webinar, we use it as a tool. The tool will always be driven, well, always. We don't know what the future holds with AI developing at breathneck speed, but as things stand right now, the humans drive the tool. It might be a case of not needing 5 humans to do the job that was done before, and maybe 2 now can do the same job with the use of AI. But ultimately, I don't see AI replacing humans in the foreseeable future, because AI at this stage does not generate emotion and does not understand emotion. Generative AI in the future, or general AI going forward, might not be the case.
Thanks, Mimi. Dr. Vuyo?
Yes, in the same vein and thinking as Mimi, it's correct. You have a tool and a person drive the tool, but how many? Just a case in point for us, using one of the areas where we are still experimenting, but we find that the tools are working. It's where you have multi-languages. Previously we used to have one archive person per radio stations, or per each radio station. Now, depending on the translation, if it's moving from English, then you taking it to Portuguese, to French. You use now one archivist to do the 3 type of activities. Then the other team members now will start to focus on even the backlog or other type of work. So you start to get the efficiencies. So for me, it depends on your strategy, but first you have to define your strategy, and then you have to identify the areas that you think AI can do the heavy lifting for you, then the human can do the soft element. Then by so doing, you are able to then articulate that to your team and the people around you. Then you get the support. Then by so doing, it then give you the balance now, because it is us that interpret how the balance should look like. But when we are part of the decision making, and we are part of the us recommending these tools, we are able to move together forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Vuyo. And thank you, Judy. I see you have your hand up there. Hello, Judy. I'm not sure if you're on mute. Okay. Judy's mic is disabled. Sorry about that. You can go for
the
it, Judy.
AI. Just call in the AI to help Judy. What's going on?
Yeah. Judy, it's enabled now. Just try it again.
Yay. Thank you for AI. And thanks to Dr. V and Mimi for this very insightful presentations. I wanted to speak to just two. I think I'm making comments rather than posing questions. The first one being around the issue of self-regulation, and I like what Dr. V said at the beginning to say the industry should be taking a lead. And indeed, we should be taking a lead. And I believe that this is a really good start for us as an industry in carving a way for ourselves. We've seen that the Australian regulator, ACMA, has already put regulations in place where radio services are required to disclose AI usage. And in the context of South Africa, we know that if the regulator is to take a lead, it might be a little bit problematic in terms of keeping abreast with the technology and ensuring that the regulations are refreshed and revised terminously. And just to emphasize, that we need to be taking a lead, and I fully support that. And I think my second comment is on, I think Dr. V spoke about how we can benefit from AI in terms of, the function of minimizing admin work and provision of, fast reports promptly. And I think Mimi also spoke about enhanced accountability. And I was thinking along the lines of the compliance reports that we're submitting as a radio, the templates prescribed by ICASA are actually very, very onerous and manual intensive. And I was wondering that, maybe we should be looking into AI solutions to advise the regulator in terms of, how we put together reports and minimize work, especially for us as licensees. So just those two comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I don't know if you want to respond. Oh, Nadia, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Judy. In fact, we were having this exact conversation around getting ahead of it, and how the NAB can develop a guideline. Judy, recall that ICASA wanted us to consider the code of conduct for broadcasters and how that needs to be updated. I think we want to focus on developing a guideline for broadcasters, which will be both for radio and TV. So that's one start to get ahead of it. I think your suggestion around building a tool on the very cumbersome monitoring reports is brilliant. But it is going to mean the industry taking the lead in developing that tool, because I think regrettably, if we wait for the regulator, we're not going to see anything really coming out of that. Of course, the other challenge is whether the regulator is actually up to date and up to speed with this. So thanks, Judy. I think it's a fantastic entry, and we need to start, to your point, getting ahead of it. So that's just a forthcoming attraction, is that is exactly what we'll be doing, is developing an AI guideline for broadcasters, and that will be, an NAB product. So we're going to look forward to all of your participation and engagement. Also a reminder that Dr. Vuyo mentioned the South African policy approach. In 2024, they launched the kind of policy framework on AI. We understand that they're meant to be concluding or finalizing a policy sometime later this year. And importantly, those strategic pillars for South Africa in terms of AI, one of the key and priorities right at the top, they're called talent development and capacity building. And this is so vital because we're talking about AI being a tool, not taking over human capabilities, etc. So it's good to see that government's talking about talent development and capacity development and building. They obviously talk about digital infrastructure, research, development, innovation, public sector implementation, ethical AI guidelines, privacy, data protection, safety, security, transparency, fairness, mitigating bias, etc., etc. But on the upside, what they do say is that these guidelines have to be sector specific. So again, Judy, the lovely thing is in terms of our sector, we will get ahead of that. I think what we've also observed is that the whole conversation around AI is because it cuts across so many different industries, use cases, et cetera, that a lot of that's been really pivoting around cybercrimes, the Cybercrimes Act, PAPIA, etc. So I think that certainly as the NAB, we are going to have to develop something that is very, very directed and specific to our sector. And one of our TV members yesterday just reminded us that, your industry's been using these incredible tools forever, special effects, et cetera, and we don't want the regulator to be confused with the ordinary work that you do anyway in terms of how you create product and content with where AI is being plugged in. So I think the issue around AI and news in particular has become something very topical and front and center. But thank you so much, definitely, Judy. And we'll obviously be leaning on you and the rest of the policy regulatory colleagues to develop that set of guidelines. Thanks, Offense.
Thank you, Nadia. Dr. Vuyo, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Offense. Judy, thanks for the comments there and also the thinking that you are bringing, because it triggered the conversation that most probably in the next NAB sessions you're gonna be talking to, because I was with the Dumisani Udia. Is already saying they have concluded the process, Nadia. Then they will be issuing the document out for comments. I think for what is it, 60 days or 90 days, but it's gonna be out for comments for 90 days. I think now is gonna be our opportunity then to look at those gaps. But then coming back to your suggestion, Judy, it is indeed correct, because I've seen, we've discussed it recently, the requirements that even not just ICASA, even some of the auditors are looking at the eye that they are looking at within radio. They are looking at all the different, or they rather want the report that talks to or align to the license in terms of the content that you've pushed out, how many hours, and so forth and so forth. It is a difficult exercise to do that with a spreadsheet, but that's where now the AI tools and our commitment, I think Kim is here, was that we're going to start to look into those tools. But I think the forum here can assist in defining the parameters, because there's two sides to this. Firstly, we need to understand how will they want the report. But with the knowledge and insight that you have, you can start to streamline those reports. Then by streamlining the reports, it becomes easier for the people to develop tools or for us to look for the tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vuyo. Teach Wild, I see you have a question for our panelists, but we'd love to hear your voice, so you can go ahead. Teach Wild from Link FM, are you there? But his question was, taking community broadcasters into account, is it realistic to expect AI to assist in compiling music the listener wants to hear when ICASA dictates that we have to play 80% local? Okay, sorry, Tishwald. 1 second. Dr.
Yes, a very interesting question, and true indeed. I think this one, I'll leave it to the people that are closer to the regulation, Judy, Nico, and all the other colleagues. The reason I'm laughing is that we want to move forward, but already we have constraints around us that we're gonna need to navigate. So that's what we always get as the tech people specifically. So let me allow the other colleagues to contribute on this. Thanks.
I think it goes back to what you presented, Dr. Vuyo, which was the human in the loop element. I think these decisions should ultimately come back to the human who's responsible for taking them. I think that's what I would say. But I've also shared some useful AI tools and resources that broadcasters can use, including Adobe, Podcast Enhance, 11 Labs, Google Gemini, and ChatGPT. So these are very useful in speech to text, especially for your podcast functions. If you had an interview earlier and you want to upload it on your platform, it can reduce the time it takes to do all of that. Also for content ideation and script writing, these are very useful. But it seems we have now come to the end of our webinar, and I want to thank all of you for making time today to be with us, especially our two speakers, Mimi, Dr. Vuyo. We really appreciate your insights. And like Nadia said, the next steps would now be putting together an AI tool for NAB members, just to show us how we can navigate AI ethically and responsibly while sticking to our mandates as broadcasters. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. Until next time, enjoy the rest of Radio Month. Thank you. Cheers, everybody.